Oh, we're going back
Tier
to
3.
Tier 3.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
may I make a comment before you begin Tier 3?
You may.
All right. The reason I don't have recommendations for Tier 3, I'm unable to determine what is actually in Tier 3.
No recommendations.
There's no recommendation.
See, I thought we passed an ordinance. I thought the ordinance addressed. I thought we did, but I can't.
Well, may I clarify something? May you allow me?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr.
Well, actually, I'm through. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
That's why I'm leaving it to
Mr.
council.
Norman Jackson, you recognize?
Yes, my motion initially, and I talked to the county attorney before I made the motion way back, is that in tier 3, what is considered tier 3, right, was $150,000, similar operation similar to Historic Columbia and the Columbia Museum of Art, that annually there would be a line item for $150,000 for Pinewood Lake Park Foundation. And I see that's $87,000, but I can remember last year it was not $87,000, it was $150,000, if you can remember.
I remember the discussion, if you're asking me, but I can't find nothing in writing. I can't find anything in writing.
I can't either.
Well, we had the discussion. I don't know what happened or why it's not in writing, but that was the intent of the motion last year, and I'm surprised to see it here, and that's why I asked a question last week. Why is it a tier 3 and not a tier 2? And they said they would adjust it or they'd let us know at this meeting. So,
I think tier 2 or ordinance. Tier 3.
Yeah,
if it's not, I'd make a motion that we approve $150,000 for Pinewood Lake Park Foundation for promotions.
I hear a
I'll
motion.
second that for discussion.
Okay, it's probably moved in second. Mr. Jackson's motion is second. Mr. Malinowski.
I'd like to know why we don't have a figure in there for what they received for FY17, or did they not get anything? I sure thought they did.
They did.
$150,000 was allocated to it.
You're asking staff for
I'm
that?
asking staff or anybody that's got that info.
All right. If you'll permit us, Madam Chair, I think there are some of this, as Mr. Pierce indicates, is memory and recollection, and it's been difficult to piece it together. What I have is $150,000 was allocated, but it was by motion, I believe.
Can you repeat that again? Because I really didn't hear it clearly.
Okay? And I apologize for the mics. They're cutting in and out. My understanding of what took place during last year's budget deliberations is that that Pinewood Lake Foundation received $150,000, plus I believe there was another $80,000 that came from the items that were identified for council discretion, the $164,000.
So you saying that they received $230,000?
I think total. Is that correct?
Okay. That's.
And again, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. It's
Okay.
just that this is an item where
Okay, so
Mr. Pierce is correct. There's not a lot in writing. It's 230.
Total.
Okay. All right.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, I have Mr. Rosen, Mr. Chip Jackson, and then Mr. Pierce.
I'd make a substitute motion. June 1st, the Conservation Commission's taken over
July
1st. I would make a substitute motion that we fund the Conservation Commission $75,000 in H-tax for the purpose of the Pinewood Lake Park. So since they will be the organization overseeing the park, I would like to designate $75,000 of hospitality tax to the Conservation Commission, who will be running the park for the purpose of of developing tourism at Pinewood Lake.
Okay.
And so that's my substitute motion.
I'll second the motion for discussion.
Okay, all right. And I have Mr. Chip Jackson before that, and then you can have this follow up with discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted, because I'm new, obviously, I don't understand it well enough, but I want to be clear. If the operational authority and responsibility is going to shift from the existing entity now, the foundation, to the conservation, why would we provide any additional funding to the foundation if, in fact, a new organization is going to take over July 1? That's my question.
Okay. 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 I have Mr. Rose. Did I have you down? No. Okay.
Yeah, I have a motion on the floor.
Oh, that's right. Mr. Jackson, Ian Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. From my understanding, the motion that was made was Pinewood Lake Park Foundation reported to Richland County itself. I think the motion was to put it under the Conservation Commission to oversee the Pinewood Lake Park Foundation and the operations of the park. I didn't think that the Conservation Commission was going to go into the business of operating a park. This council asks Pinewood Lake Park Foundation or asks some people to create Pinewood Lake Park Foundation. They develop a 501c3 organization, right, by this county council to operate the park. That was just done. There's a motion to shift it to report to the Conservation Commission, which is totally different, right? Promotions is still hospitality tax. Would they give it to the Conservation Commission to distribute the hospitality tax, or this council distribute the hospitality tax? The same difference. What I'm seeing here, right, and what some of my colleagues may have planned to do, and I've seen where Mr. Rose right here to my right, what he's doing, is to find a way to take away the operations or the promotions of Pinewood Lake Park Foundation from Lower Richland community. And now you're trying to say that the Conservation Commission should operate it. Just like Historic Columbia, just like Adventure, Columbia Museum of Art, their money is allocated to that foundation for operations, not to Richland County for operations, not to the Conservation Commission for operations. It's allocated to the foundation or the organization that's attached to that entity. What my colleague is trying to do is create a division to say, okay, forget the organization and go directly to the agency or the department, which I think is unfair. I think if you ask an organization to like Historic Columbia to promote tourism, it's about the foundation or the organization. It's not about the agency. The Conservation Commission is still a part of Richland County. It's just a department. It's a department of Richland County. So it's still Richland County. So to create this division and to say, okay, what I'm seeing is an attempt, right, to destroy an organization or to stop funding for an organization for Lower Richland community. And this has been an effort, and it's the same thing to talk about the scales and what went down with your blogger friend who has been promoting this thing.
No, right? don't call no names. Please be nice.
No, Miss Dickinson.
All right,
I was told that when as a member of Richland County Council or an elected official, I have a forum, and in the forum, I can speak my mind.
Yes, sir.
Because I cannot file a suit against those people who have they created to create these blogs. So the only way I have to speak is through a forum. I have a public forum here now, and I'm speaking with that public forum. And at the end of the day, I will have a public meeting in Lower Richland also to discuss what some of my colleagues are planning to do. Right? I'm tired of it. I've been fighting this for the past 8 years. Right? Just to get the funding, just to get the park. Initially got the park, right? There was a fight. We bought part of the property and didn't want to keep the dam because the dam would fail. The flood came, the dam didn't fail. The emergency spillway did its job, right? But it's a constant attempt. I support Historic Columbia. I didn't fight against it. And even with Historic Columbia, with the Woodrow Wilson House, right, you have a president who said the Negro race could not be educated. And I have a lot of my constituents, like your constituents, wouldn't support Lower Richland community. I have my constituents saying that they cannot support a president who says the Negro race could not be educated. So we have a difference. So you want to start a race war or a difference with race? I'm ready for it. But I will not sit here and let you do undermine right, the efforts I'm trying to do to promote Lower Richland community. Thank you.
Okay, I have Mr. Pierce and Mr. Chip Jackson.
I'm not sure I really want to speak here, but Mr. Jackson, let me assure you that I certainly don't have any desire to undermine the Pinewood Park. But if you would listen, if you would just please give me the opportunity to forum here. It was my understanding that we did vote. I thought we voted, I may be wrong, and I'd like clarification, that the Conservation Commission, at least the documents they're sending me, they expect to begin managing that park with personnel that they've asked for on July the 1st. That's what I have received in the mail, because they're writing me to support apparently there was one position, they need another half position, but it was my understanding they were going to manage the park, and the foundation was going to provide activities in the park like they always have.
With $150,000.
But if they're no longer managing, if the foundation is no longer managing the park, I think the question is, how much do they need to do that? So,
can I clarify what you just said? Would you allow me, Madam Chair?
I'll allow you.
I met with the Conservation Commission, and they said they had no intention of managing a park. I met with them twice. So this thing they sent, I can't trust the Conservation Commission if they tell me one thing and do something totally different, right? And it's fine if the Conservation Commission decide to manage the park, have it open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and do all those stuff. That's fine, right? But the promotions is different from the operations or the managing of the park. And just like in promotions, they get $150,000 a year to promote events at the park is different from managing the park. The mistake we made was we allowed them $150,000 for operations, but because it was hospitality tax, they were told they have to do promotions. And that's what they did. So I have no problem with $150,000 for promotions, right? And if the Conservation Commission want to start in the managing business of a park and make sure it's open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, because they lied to me. Because I met with them twice and I never heard anything about that.
Now you just want a point of clarification,
so
right?
I'm just clarifying. I'm just what Mr. Pierce told me and
okay.
what I'm just seeing now. I don't trust the Conservation Commission and the games they're playing. Thank you.
Okay, Mr.
What I'm asking for
You still have the floor.
is clarification
Right.
on who is going to manage the park effective July 1st, and what money are we going to provide for the management
Absolutely.
of the park
Thank you.
on July 1st, all right? Mm-hmm. And if we want to make a decision on the promotion, and then that would be the question here.
Okay.
But I'd like to know who's going to manage the park on July 1st. All
Okay,
right? That's all.
Mr. Chip Jackson.
Madam Chair, for those of us who are new and were not here when the decision was made to shift whatever responsibility seems to have shifted from the foundation to the Conservation Commission, obviously we're not the only ones confused about this, and I'm happy to hear that tonight. I think it's important to determine who's actually going to manage it, because that is simply the question I asked at the beginning of my first comment. Why would we fund a group that was not be responsible for managing the park starting July 1? If, in fact, the foundation is going to have management responsibilities, then you answer my question. If they're not going to have management responsibilities, my question still remains on the table. Then why would we fund them at the level that is being requested? And that's my question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Manning, Mr. Rose, and Mr. Malinowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion addresses partially about promotion, and we have recently issued a public relations agency grant, whatever it is, to do public relations. It includes Lower Richland. Would part of that money and the work of that group be doing some of the promotion that you recommend that money for, Mr. Rose, do you think?
No, that's you could twist.
I'm sorry, Mr. Manning.
Your motion was about money for promoting Pinewood Lake Park, and my question is the RFQ that we've issued and awarded for the public relations group to do public relations in Lower Richland, would that not cover part of publicly relating about the park?
Which group is this?
That would have to, would that come from you, Mr. Seals? You would have to answer that question. I mean, that would be part of your administration for the promotion, I would think.
That was
Okay.
conservation land. That's not the.
Okay, and then Miss, okay. Then
Clarification. Miss,
Wait,
Miss
wait. Mr. Seals?
On the matter of promotions, the promotions is broad, and it does include Lower Richland and a variety of other things. If you recall, council gave direction in that regard at the Charleston retreat, and the intention was that we would be able to do a variety of things covering a variety of promotions or issues with the county. And so it is correct that it's broad to include that. We don't know everything that we will be doing, but we were responding to council sentiment expressed during the Charleston retreat.
Okay, that answer your question, Ms. Lynn?
Yeah, it sounds like we might need to reduce the figure you're talking about because we're already paying for that to be done.
Okay, I have I'm gonna give you the order. I have Mr. Rose, I have Mr. Malinowski, Ms. Myers, and Mr. Livingston. Mr. Rose, you have the floor.
Well,
Oh, Jackson.
I guess one
Mr.
thing
Jackson, you addressed this about 2 or 3
the
times.
thing that I'm trying to wait to hear is what I know council voted on, and that is to give the Conservation Commission the authority. This council voted, a majority of this council voted to give the Conservation Commission the authority to run the park effective July 1st. That is a fact. And that is what this council, a majority of this council supported. And so I think the last 2 speakers, Mr. Manning basically points out that my motion's very generous with the funding. And Mr. Jackson and Chip Jackson and I are basically saying the same thing, that why would we fund an entity that is no longer overseeing a park at that amount of money? And so I'm actually trying to allocate funds for the Pinewood Lake Foundation, but give it to the entity that this council, a majority of council, has voted to get to control and oversee the park. So, just because something is said doesn't make it true. And this is actually
Okay. All right.
My wife quotes you on that a
All
lot,
right,
Mr.
okay, all
Rhodes.
right.
And so-
Y'all be cool.
But this council voted to give the Conservation Commission control and authority over the park effective July 1st.
Okay,
And I
thank
don't
you.
know why we can't get that from
Okay,
staff
well,
at this point.
next I have Mr. Malinowski, Ms. Myers, Mr. Livingston,
My question is
Mr. N.
for
Jackson.
staff, and so maybe I should wait till I get all their attention down here.
Okay.
They got a committee.
Well, they do.
Mr. Malinowski is waiting for you all to come to a consensus so he can speak.
I've got 2 questions for y'all. One is based on Mr. Rose and Mr. Pierce's questions, which I believe we just need a yes or no. Is the Conservation Commission going to manage Pinewood Lake Park?
Madam Chair, members of council, the answer to that is yes. If I know what the answer you're looking for is a quick yes. The reference to that goes back to Council Memorandum 8-1, which took place in August of 2016. What I was asking staff to get, because I understand we don't wade in on this as a matter of debate with the council, but just in terms of the record, that is what the council decided, what I wanted them to do, and they're trying to get it. They can actually get a copy of the actual document that says what, in fact, council did.
Okay, my second question is, in the management of that facility, is promotion included? Promoting the park, is that included?
Would you please restate that? I apologize.
Is in the managing of the Pinewood Lake Park facility, will that also include the promotion of Pinewood Lake Park facility?
There is a letter that I sent following direction from council. I believe it was in February that was sent directly to the foundation, basically ending the contract the county had with the foundation and explaining what would be the responsibilities of the Conservation Commission. Those responsibilities, as I recall council action, would include promotion, but the language, as I recall, was that council left it up to the commission to continue to use Pinewood Lake Foundation or other entities, but the decision was the commission's, and the responsibility for the management and promotion of the park was to the commission. Now, what I'm concerned about is obviously this is all by recollection, and what I'd like to do is just make sure that we can get those documents, and they are attempting to do that.
So, in promoting it, is promotional funding going to be handled by the Conservation Commission, or will an outside agency need promotional funding?
As I understand, as you pull all the direction I believe that I've received from council, one, the responsibility for management, which includes promotion, falls to the commission. Two, council expressed concern that there are a variety of activities that the county is engaged in where it needed that kind of assistance. And so that assistance we solicited, and that assistance would be available to all of the county as is needed, and that would include the Conservation Department.
Thank you.
Okay, next I
Madam
have-
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I do have the letter, and perhaps it's not long. If you don't mind, I would read it, unless you think that's wrong.
Y'all want to hear it?
Yeah.
Everybody want to hear the letter?
The
Okay.
letter is dated February 15, 2017. It is to the Executive Director of Pinewood Lake Foundation, and it reads, "This letter is to formally notify the Pinewood Lake Foundation of the action taken by Richland County Council related to its Pinewood Lake Property Management Agreement with the county. On October 18, 2016, County Council voted to transfer the management and operational functions outlined in the aforementioned agreement that are currently performed by the foundation to the county's Conservation Department effective July 1, 2017. Thus, the county's contract with the foundation will not be renewed once it expires on June 30, 2017. The Conservation Department will work with volunteers and nonprofit organizations such as the foundation to ensure that local community involvement with the property is uninterrupted during the transition. Please feel free to contact me or the Conservation Department Director should you have any questions or need additional information."
Okay. Y'all heard the letter. Okay. All right. Next, I have Ms. Myers, Mr. Livingston, Mr. N. Jackson, and Mr. Jackson noted that would be probably your third time, and then I have Ms. Gwen Kennedy.
Mr. Seals, thank you all for providing context and the letter. Just a note, I share wholeheartedly Mr. N. Jackson's robust desire to see that park become a thriving part of the larger Richland County community of parks, and would just suggest that we maybe move forward as we all agreed and look at a way to sort of scale down what the foundation is doing, given that that's what we voted to do, but not abruptly. I guess Mr. Jackson's concern is that there will be some interruption of what's been going on at the park, and that those who've been most closely handling it would immediately be terminated or they'd evaporate, and there would be no continuity in the local area. And so I might suggest in that vein that we take an action to just instruct the Conservation Commission to utilize them for some small period of time so that we can transition them into the job and those folks out of the job, and not have a sort of a jack-o'-lantern of a park in Richland County.
That's what you want to be incorporated?
If Mr. Jackson is amenable to that, yes.
Okay.
When I speak,
All right, okay, the next I have Mr. Livingston.
Madam Chair, I'm referring to a letter dated May 15th from the Richland County Conservation Commission, and there's a sentence in that letter that says, Pinewood Lake Foundation involvement in the park may continue as a sponsor of community involvement programs, special events, and other promotional activities. And this could occur either through HSAC's funding or other sources or volunteers. So it seems to me like if the foundation, the commission is going to be in charge, then they need to make a decision, about whether they want to do this with the Pine Lake Foundation or whomever. But we have to decide how much we're going to give in terms of hospitality tax.
All right. Mr. N. Jackson, and I think this will be third time, all right.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will pick up check of everybody's third time also.
They've been postponing clarification.
First of all, Pinewood Lake Park Foundation owns part of the park. They own a portion of the park, right? The Conservation Commission, my understanding was that the Conservation Commission was not going to start operations and running a park. They would partnership or hire a non-profit organization like Pinewood Lake Park Foundation to continue running the park, but the Conservation Commission was not going to get into the business of running the park and have somebody out there 7 days a week, 12 hours a day running the park and cleaning the restrooms and everything. That was my understanding. I agree if the foundation wants to operate and run the park, that's fine, as long as it's uninterrupted. And the services does not deteriorate in the Lower Richland community with the Conservation Commission running that park. That's okay. I have no problem with that, right? But to promote the promotions of the park is similar, like I said, to Historic Columbia. They get funding to promote the Woodrow Wilson House. All these are promotion funding, right? And I don't want to see that cut short because they have special programs they fund and use at the park. And if the Conservation Commissions want to run it, fine. They still have part of the park where they can have their own park on that park. So we have a relationship or a partnership where they own part of the park, and be mindful of that. I'm not sure if my colleagues understand that they own part of the park also. So if the Conservation Commission want to do it, that's fine. I do not have a problem with that. I'm just concerned with promoting activities at that park, for one, with the foundation, and two, that is not interrupted. And then we come to a day that the Conservation Commission don't have the proper staff and the volunteers they're going to get to make sure that park is uninterrupted. That's my concern. There's an agreement with the county and the park with part of the easement. The Conservation Commission would make a recommendation that the park turn over part of the land to the county. So the lake can be repaired, and there's certain things the Conservation Commission would like the foundation to do. That's up to the foundation. I don't speak for the foundation. My concern is the uninterrupted service in the Lower Richland community for Richland County to bring tourism to the Lower Richland community for them to benefit with the hospitality tax. And that includes the promotions. That has nothing to do with running the park. That's separate. But I want to make sure the park is run uninterrupted. But the 2 meetings I had with the Conservation Commission, they were telling me that they had a contract they were going to ask the foundation to sign eventually to run the park. So what I'm hearing different now tonight and from the letter they sent out is totally different from what I was told by members of the Conservation Commission. So I'm surprised this letter came out, but when I went to the meeting, you told me something totally different. And for that, I said I have no trust in what I was told by the Conservation Commission and what the letter that was sent out. Again, my concern is that this park is not on a track to be shut down and closed because the Conservation Commission don't have the time or don't have the staff to do it. You asked for $140,000 for one staff member. to operate the park. The foundation had $150,000, right, for 3 staff members to run the park and promotions. 3 people for $150,000 plus promotions. But you have 1 person for $140,000. I think that's unfair, right? And I can't support giving the foundation $140,000 for 1 person. That's what it says, right? So be clear in what you're asking for. It's not clear to me, and I do not trust the Conservation Commission after what they have told me, what I've met with them twice, and the conversation we have had, and what they just did. I can't support them. But my motion again is to fund Fano Lake Park Foundation promotions for the $150,000 which I received last year for promotions. With the park, Conservation Commission can have it as long as it's not destroyed. Thank you.
Ms. Kennedy?
No, I just wanted to see some of the documents, but since it's been already brought out and cleared up, I'm fine.
Okay.
I
No
just wanted
problem.
some proof of what was said and done, because that was before my time. And I just wanted to make sure I had the right information. I'm not sure I have it yet, but